Good evening, good day, and welcome, whatever time zone you're in. Welcome to More Yoga's Connection Cafe. This is Yoga Journeys, and I am your host, Yvonne O'Garro, and I am a restorative and hatha yoga teacher with More Yoga. So, Connection Cafe started in March 2020. Probably just a little bit after that, but it was a way for us to connect during lockdown when all the studios were closed. And then, unfortunately, when George Floyd, beg your pardon, was tragically killed in May last year, I was asked to create a space to amplify the voices of melanated teachers, or hold whatever space I felt was appropriate. And I decided to showcase yogis of color, the very varied journeys we've had, how we have found ourselves in yoga, because we do exist, yoga teachers of color. And I asked the same 10 questions, and the answers are richly different. I've had the pleasure of meeting some awesome yogis, and today is no different. I have the pleasure of introducing Aisha Nash. Woo!
Thank you, Yvonne, for that. Thank you,
Welcome,
everyone that
welcome.
is watching this, and thank you, everyone that watches the recording.
How
And
are you
thank you, Yvonne.
today?
I am good. I'm good. I'm enjoying the sunshine.
It is
And
beautiful. I
yeah,
thank you for giving us your time on this sunny bank holiday Monday. So, are you ready to share with us your yoga journey?
of course. So for
Before we get
those
into the
that,
main questions, though, I like to ask the yogi in the hot seat to introduce themselves if they had to meet a stranger in a lift. And because I think it's important you introduce yourself as you would like to be introduced, as opposed to how I introduce you. So, who are you, Aisha Nash?
I am a yoga teacher. I wear many different hats within what I do. I also am a body image educator. And I speak a lot about diet culture, the history of diet culture, and how it kind of needs to be taken out of a yoga practice. But primarily, I am a yoga teacher. I've had a long journey to get here through being a chef, through my degree in biology, and yeah, at the end of the day, I'm a yoga teacher.
Amazing, amazing. And what style do you teach?
I teach this weird kind of mashup of everything. My main teachings, the way I've come into this is through vinyasa, then restorative and mindful. And due to my background in science, I like to learn about the anatomy and what's happening in the human body when we go into certain poses. And I combine that with my knowledge of diet culture and trauma-informed yoga to provide a space that is free of any guilty talk or diet related talk, so that it can be purely about yoga itself, which is an amazing philosophy, that it's not about that 1 hour class. It's
Mm,
what has
that's
settled in your body as you go through that 1 hour class.
amazing. Absolutely. Thank you so much. So now we're going to dive into the questions that I ask all the yogis. Variety of answers. So here we go. So, honoring our ancestors, please share your family lineage.
I am British Indian by way of Malawi and then India. My grandparents moved from India to Malawi in Africa prior to partition.
Mm.
And then from Malawi, my parents moved over here. Ancestry and lineage is a weird one for me, because in my family it's not really discussed. It's, oh, this is, you know, it's it's not that it's ignored, it's that it is not viewed as important as this current life that we're living right now. The
Okay.
past is sometimes filled with a lot of pain, a lot of
Mhm.
memories of heartache, and a harder life. So now my family, if we ever do discuss it, my mom will always mention what my granddad liked to eat more than anything else.
Okay. Okay.
And she'll mention a few things, but very, very little. From what I've managed to get from Google, based on like the tribe that I'm from,
Mm.
is that I come from a long line of merchants
Okay.
who
Okay.
converted to Islam a very, very long time ago. Yeah.
Okay. Okay. Do you think that that's your mum's way of, you know, coping with, as you say, the painful memories, that she focuses on like the real war memories of, like, granddad eating, you know?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah.
definitely.
Yeah. I kind of respect that in one way. Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah.
And
So
it's just in that a line of merchants. What
yeah,
what 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 was the main product? Do you know?
I have no idea.
Wow.
There's nothing in the records that says what they sold within being
Amazing,
merchants,
girl.
but what I do know is philanthropy and charity within my tribe has a long line of existing, which
Wow.
is really
Okay.
nice. Yeah.
Yeah, that must fill you with some pride, eh? Yeah.
It does, yeah.
Yeah.
And weirdly, I was thinking about this earlier today. There's this, so I have ADHD where my brain is wired differently. And this actually makes me feel more connected to my ancestors than anything ever has, because when you have ADHD, they say that you make a really good salesperson because you can get really passionate about
Oh,
it.
right.
And the fact that I come from a chain of merchants and salespeople, it's like, oh yeah, cool. I see it.
Yes, there's a
So
connection.
it's
There
a
you
nice
go.
way that I feel connected to them. Yeah.
Yeah, no, it's great. It's great. Good for you. Okay, so can you recall where, when, and with whom was your first yoga class?
Oh my God, I've forgotten her name. It was when I was about 5 years old.
Five years old.
My mom took me to her class. Yeah. And my mom, like, she will quote her yoga teacher even now, and she has not been to that yoga teacher for a good 20 years, but she'll say, this teacher told me this, and her name's just like at the tip of my tongue and it's gone.
It'll come
Um,
to you, don't worry.
but
Wow.
yeah, it was like, look at how flexible my little 5-year-old is. And I used to be sitting there doing like lotus and then a shoulder stand, like not getting the point of it at all.
Wow.
And at that point, neither did my mom. She just like, look at how flexible she is. It was so adorable.
Wow.
And then yeah, like at home, my mom kept up a yoga practice, and I'd help her get into headstand when I was barely out of being a toddler, sort of thing. Yeah.
Amazing. So you've grown up with yoga being practiced at home, like, since a child.
Yeah,
And
completely.
has your practice been consistent since a child, or was there like a sabbatical period, as happens sometimes?
There have been a few sabbatical periods, quite short ones.
Hmm. Hmm.
It was always there. My mom used to teach yoga to like her friends,
Oh,
and
wow.
I'd always used to go to those classes with her. And it was always like the very small joint movements, the ones
Mm.
that we need a little bit more. And strangely, that's the stuff I teach now.
Wow.
So it's the same thing. And I kind of got back into it when I was 18 again, when a hot yoga studio opened up near my house.
Hmm.
And then when I was a chef, I completely dropped out of it because I had no time whatsoever to have any sort of practice. And then the leaving the chefing was what got me back into it again.
Must be quite. I'm imagining, because my mum's passed away now, and she knew how much yoga meant to me. But
Mm.
I, describe what it's like seeing your mum teach yoga. Is that quite inspiring for you?
It was actually, because otherwise, other than that, I grew up with my mum being a housewife.
Hmm.
And that was
Hmm.
my mum. had lots of things that she was very interested in, and she was amazing at all of them. Yeah, she was absolutely amazing at all of them. She used to do like soft furnishings and flower arranging, and yoga was one of the other things. Yeah.
Very
And
creative.
she, yeah, so she still has people come up to her going, you know, those things that you taught us to do, they helped so much with my pain. I'm still doing them, and it's 20 years later that you stopped teaching us, but I still do all of the things that you taught us every day.
That's amazing.
It's lovely to have that. Yeah.
That's amazing to
And
hear.
yeah.
So you're saying it was the chefing, because you were just so burnt out, it was crazy hours, because you were a Michelin star pastry chef, is that right?
I worked at a Michelin starred restaurant. I'm not Michelin starred.
Okay.
I did do a couple of competitions, and I'm award-winning pastry chef.
Oh, wow.
Not that I chef anymore at all. But yeah, like it was literally the last competition I did. I did that while working full time, and a month later I turned up to work going, chef, I can't do this anymore. I'm sorry, I can't. I'm in pain. Yeah.
Yeah.
Because it's
And then how it was there where you kind of deeply fell in love with yoga, or is that when the teacher training started?
That's when I used yoga as a rehab.
Right. Okay.
So you got to remember that when you, or at least for me, when I couldn't do a job that I had trained for, that I was excellent at, my self-esteem was non-existent. My entirety as a human being was wrapped up in that job. My friends were my chefs. My life was a 16-hour day working in a kitchen and going home and sleeping. I never even saw my family, other than like, hi, I'm going to sleep, and then waking up the next morning.
Gosh.
There were so many moments from that time where my niece is like, we did this, why weren't you there? And it's like, sweetie, I was working.
Yeah.
So yeah, my entire persona was a chef. That's all I was. And to leave that and to know that it physically hurt my body so much, and it was really hard.
But you did it. You did it.
Yeah,
You did it. What year was that, Aisha?
Sorry?
What year was that?
Oh God. I was 25, 26. I can't do math right now. That was about 6 years ago.
6 years ago. Okay.
Yeah. And yeah, that works because I've been a chef. I've been a yoga teacher for 5 years.
Okay. So you probably took, you said you use yoga as rehab. So how soon after the rehab did you then realize you wanted to be a teacher? What happened to make you decide you wanted to teach?
It wasn't that I decided I wanted to teach. It was that I decided that this could be a potential path to go down. Oh, okay. And I was at this weird crossroads where I had rehabilitated my body, where I could potentially go back to being a chef, or I could do a yoga teacher training. And I thought, well, let me do a yoga teacher training. Let me see how it goes. I thankfully had some money saved up so I could afford it, because we can't forget how expensive these things are. Yeah. And at the end of it, I was like, let me see. And then all these opportunities just kept dropping in my lap. And it was only the very first time that I taught a bunch of university students that I really thought, yeah, I can do this, because it was in teaching university students this idea of stepping back, this idea of reducing stress in your life and prioritize yourself. I realized, yeah, actually, I like what this is. I think I can carry on doing this. But it wasn't just my yoga teacher training. In fact, that particular experience was awful. Oh dear. is my the nicest way I can describe it.
Oh dear. Okay. How long was that training?
Mm, it was 3 months. There were 2 weeks that were like an intensive where we went to Morocco. And before then, I was vegetarian, and there was so much vegan propaganda that I came back eating meat. In fact, on my second day off, I was so tired of this kind of weird holier than thou veganism that was kind of being pushed down our throats that on our second day off, I went and had a beef burger. It was gross.
Really?
I had one bite. But yeah, that killed 9 years of being vegetarian.
Wow.
Yeah.
My goodness. Wow. Okay. Okay. Have you taken training since then that's made you feel, restored your faith maybe in training?
Yeah,
Yes.
definitely.
Okay.
I would say if anybody's watching this and is like going, oh my God, you can't do that, do your research ahead of time. What I didn't realize and what I didn't know is that the yoga world is this huge thing with loads of teachers and loads of trainings. Because I don't know, I was naive. I was just out of a career that had broken me. And I had absolutely no idea that there was this entire world that existed. And if I'd done my research, I would have done that teacher training. But, hindsight and all of that.
Yeah, absolutely.
I've since done many, many teacher trainings. I've just finished my 300 hours.
Who did you do your 300 hour with?
I did it with Bria Johnson from Heart and Bones Yoga. She's based up in Canada.
Oh, okay.
I've been following her for a really long time, and I thought, well, let me try this one. And she's absolutely amazing. It was fully online. A mutual friend of ours, Callie Schutt, did some of the modules on it as well, and that just was like, the seller of that for me.
Yeah, definitely. Good. I'm glad. So can you recall any of the trainings that come to mind? Probably just say where it was, because I'm interested in this dynamic of how many people roughly are on the training, and then what portion are people of color. And all the interviews I've done, it's a smaller number. I think the most we've had is 7 out of about 25, and that was on my TT.
That's amazing.
And that was 2017. So I think it's the more recent TTs are a little bit more diverse, and hopefully going forward the numbers start to change as well for the better. But from your TTs, what can you recall numbers wise?
My very first one had 25 people. It had 5 teachers, and other than they were all white.
Wow. Okay. Gosh.
And yeah, that was January 2016.
2016. Gosh, it's just a year before me. Okay. And that was in the that wasn't in the was it a mainly UK based training?
It was
even though you went
UK based one, yeah.
To Morocco.
Yeah, it was a mainly UK based one. The intensive just kind of took us out of our immediate environment so that we could focus on the teacher training.
Okay.
And have a beach.
And from like the 300 hour that did restore your faith in trainings, was that a little bit more diverse?
Oh, definitely. It was fully online, so I can't
see it. You couldn't see everybody.
Okay. I couldn't see everybody. But I'd say a good maybe quarter were people of color attending. Okay. And the teaching staff were half people of color.
Excellent. Excellent. And obviously we now have Radical Darshan rolling out there. 300 hour literally next month. Yeah, June.
Yeah, it's amazing.
Yeah. 4 powerhouses of color. So yeah. Things are changing slowly. Okay, so we now move on to highs and lows of the wellness industry. And this is, I ask you if you have any lows to share those first, and then if you have any highs to share those after. So what springs to mind when I say to you highs and lows of the wellness industry?
With the lows, it would honestly be that very first place that I rehabbed my body and I worked at and I did my teacher training with. And it wasn't that they were very the wellness industry, it's that they themselves were very toxic, and I ended up in a place that was very full, filled with disordered eating. It's where I developed quite a lot of disordered eating habits. And yeah, it's one of the main reasons that I talk so loudly about diet culture and all that I constantly discuss on my Instagram or my Patreon, because people need to know when they step into the wellness industry that it is an industry. It is trying to make money.
Yeah. Yeah.
And we forget this when we walk into yoga studios. We forget this when we walk into spaces that are filled with happy, smiley yoga teachers.
It's a business.
And it's a business. And so often we, especially when we're naive or when we've come into it from places of pain, we think that the smiles and happiness is because they're our friends, because they want to hold space for us. And we can get kind of intertwined within that and very much hurt because of it. So yeah, that is my low. And then my high is when I hold sessions for people, when I hold sessions where we discuss diet culture and where we can unravel the tentacles of the diet industry, the wellness industry. And when we have those moments of, wait, I can eat the food that my mother cooked. I don't need to spend the rest of my life hating myself, because so often it's so ingrained that even though this industry is called the wellness industry, it's not actually about wellness for the majority of people. Yeah. So that would be my high. Definitely being able to shed a light on this entire culture, this entire industry.
Great. Wonderful. Continue to shine that light. Thank you. What's your one ask of the wellness industry?
Oh boy, that's a big one.
You can come back to
do,
it.
Do I have to stop with one? There's so many.
Listen, however many you have.
Stop listening to pretty people just because they're pretty.
Yeah.
That's it.
Yeah.
Stop listening. Like, yeah, that's literally it.
Yeah.
Just because someone's pretty doesn't mean that they actually know anything that they're talking about.
We laugh, but it's not funny. But yeah. Yeah, it makes a lot of sense.
It's not funny, but it's so true. Like, there are so many con artists that use the guise of wellness to sell people snake oil. There's a particular one that I would love to mention by name, but you'll probably get sued. Basically, she broke down and ate bread for the very first time, and that's what quarantine led to. So yeah, just even if someone's pretty and they have a really big smile on their face, do the research into what they're trying to sell you.
Yes, absolutely. Buyer beware, I think the saying goes.
Yeah.
Indeed. So when I started out these questions, it was what got you through lockdown, because it was just, the first lockdown in March. We've had 3 of them. So what's got you through each of them, and were they different for you, your lockdown experiences?
Oh, completely. I would say, honestly, I've lived an entire lifetime within the times that we've spent on lockdown.
Wow.
Like, it literally feels like 2020 was a full life that I've lived. Life and my current life. What got me through the first of it was moving everything online. And a little bit kind of my tenacity at being able to just go with the flow and figure it out along the way. Because at the very start, uh, I don't know how many people have been through this, but as a yoga teacher, when every single gym and every single yoga studio shut down, my job went.
That's right,
Like,
exactly.
it was gone. I was unemployed.
Yeah,
I had nothing.
because no one was teaching online before lockdown.
No, nobody.
No.
And then it was literally like 2 days later, I'm making my own website from scratch, not because I know how, not because I want to, but because I had to.
Yes. Yes.
And sitting there and trying to figure out borders and margins and
Yeah.
yeah. So yeah, the first one was pure stubbornness
Mhm,
and luck
mhm,
that got me
mhm.
through it. I'd say the second one is due to getting through the second bit of lockdown was due to an amazing group of people, you being one of them, that we call the yogis of color or the woke aunties.
Mm,
And I'll name some of them now: Janelle Lewis, Layla Sadeghi, and we'd have this group when we'd meet up once a week via Zoom.
mhm.
That kept me going. That really did.
Yeah. Yeah.
And the third one was the hardest.
Okay.
The third one was the most unexpected one for me, and it really was the hardest because back in December, it was like things are trying to tendril out and be normal. And then all of a
Yes.
sudden, it kind of shut down immediately with very close to zero warning.
That's right. Yeah.
It was
Yeah.
like,
Yeah.
yeah.
Mm,
And we had no idea how long that last lockdown was going to be. That there was no like guideline to it. People were saying it could last until June. People were saying it could last until July. People were saying it's going to be over in a month. And
mm,
all of that uncertainty was
mm.
horrid.
Yeah, exactly. On top of the other two. Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah, on top
Yeah.
of the other two.
Yeah.
What got me through the third one was the insane patience of my husband.
Oh, lovely.
Yeah. And then everybody that just kept coming back to the online sessions.
Yes. Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I like they say I kept them going, but honestly they kept me going as well, just seeing them there. And
Yeah.
yeah,
Yeah. Yeah. A mutual
this
love. Yeah,
yeah,
definitely. Yeah.
this online community,
Mm.
social media, all of it has built an amazing little hub of people that are
Mm.
amazing.
The connections are real. You know, it's, I've met people that you wouldn't have met through, this online channel, but yeah, it's great. So thank you for sharing that. Um, if you cast your mind back to the unfortunate killing of George Floyd, may he rest in peace. And can't believe it's now literally last week, it was a year. So since he was killed, if you can cast your mind back, do you remember getting additional followers as people diversified their feeds? And then also B, did you get approached by studios when they suddenly had this realization that they weren't diverse enough?
Um, so I wouldn't say that I gained many followers because I am brown and Indian and not black.
Mm-hmm.
And so I don't feel I got many like additional followers. Saying that, at the same time, I was yelling at yoga studios for this behavior, and that got me quite a few more followers and
Right.
kept building.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. Since then, I've been approached by so many yoga studios, and I have told quite a few of them to stick it where the sun doesn't shine. Because it's quite obvious that that was why they were asking me. It's quite obvious. If you approach me 2 weeks after the murder of George Floyd, it wasn't about me. It was about the color of my skin and how that would look plastered on your website and your walls.
Mm-hmm.
So I would say I didn't go to any of them.
Mm-hmm.
I carried on with my own online sessions, and I yeah, I said no to a lot of places because that's what they were doing, and I wasn't going to be a part of that, because what they wanted to do was change the, Nadia Jelani has a wonderful term for this, the ethnic wallpaper. But
Ethnic
at the same time, they,
wallpaper. Right.
yeah, it's an amazing term. So
Mm.
she went like, you might be changing the colors of the teachers, but you're not changing the hierarchy, and you're not working on anti-racism through the entire company top down.
Yes.
So
Yeah.
me being involved in this is not going to help anybody. In fact, it's putting myself in an unsafe space.
Mm. Mm.
And I refuse to do that anymore, especially with being able to teach online. It opens up so many more doors in that I'm no longer reliant on yoga studios.
Absolutely. Yeah. 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 I hear you. I hear you. Thank you for sharing. So now we move to the point where you get to tell us what's going on. You got any projects coming up, workshops, retreats, whatever you want to promote. The merchant in you now can come out and sell. Come
I'm
and
terrible
show
at
your
selling my own things.
ancestors. Yeah.
um, I have, yes, so some amazing friends of mine whose names I've already mentioned, and Yvonne has already mentioned. Radical Darshan. It's 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 not my little baby, but I have to share it because it is so incredible. It is a group of BIPOC yoga teachers who are creating this amazing 300 hours. I will be teaching one short module on it in which I will rant about diet culture,
Woohoo!
but
Bravo.
it is so amazing, and please go check it out. It's called Radical Darshan, and it's going to be amazing, and it starts in a month.
Mm.
Other than that, I, as a person, I teach some classes. I have a Patreon, and
What is Patreon? Please tell us. It's a
what
very
is
new thing
Patreon?
I'm hearing, but I don't really know what it is, and I'm sure other people don't. If you do, it's nice to have a refresher. What is it, and
Patreon,
what made you sign up for it?
Patreon is an amazing sort of space where I can create content, but that content stays mine, and people can pay a subscription to have access to it.
Mm.
So what happened through the past year was, obviously, I needed to diversify the ways that I make money as a yoga teacher, because I like to have a roof over my head and I like to eat
Mm.
food. And to pay for all of that, I had to really think about the way that I was doing stuff. And as discussed earlier, we spoke about the yoga studios that were like, oh, come work with us. And I didn't want, in the past, my career, my job, and everything has been very beholden upon these yoga studios that could very quickly take my career away from me, which
Yes.
happened in
Yes.
March.
Yes. Yes.
And due to that, I wanted to create something that is mine. And Patreon allows me to do that. It allows me to create content that people can pay to have an access to. So every week there is a short recorded video practice with me. Every week there's a short audio meditation with me, and then there's blog posts and resources that I'll share. So it's like this little hub of, firstly, how you can support people. So there's lots of comedians that use Patreon,
All
and
right.
there's loads of
Okay.
podcast creators that will use Patreon to pay for everything.
Right. Okay.
And yeah, it's a really cool space.
Okay. So how do we find you on, is that on your link tree? How do we find you? That's the other thing. Where are your website, Insta? Where can we find you on socials?
So on social media, I am only on Instagram because everything else is too confusing for my brain to deal with. I deal with one and one only.
Yeah.
On that, I am the Aisha Nash, which is the and then my full name. So TheAishaNash. Well, I forgot for a moment how to spell my name.
It's okay. It's there on screen. It's all right. Okay. And you did spell it correctly.
Yes.
Well done.
And then also my website, which has my Patreon link and has my Instagram link, which is aishanash.com, to make it really easy for people.
Wonderful, wonderful. So before we close, is there anything that you want to revisit? Anything that you forgot to mention? You know, you can have a little think, because sometimes there's maybe something, but don't worry if there's not. But I just like to give you that little airtime.
I
And
appreciate the
so
space.
if you're watching on catch up, obviously, if you have a question for Aisha, you can either put it in the comments box on YouTube or go to her Instagram and put a question in the post, because I'm sure that there was a post today, or literally just find a post and send a
Email
question.
me. Always
Yeah.
email me.
Email, yeah, exactly. Email her via the website. Yeah.
Yeah.
There you go.
That's
So
always a good place to get your questions in. One thing I would like to reiterate is, as always, yoga is not a 60-minute class.
amen.
That is like the big thing that I always want to remind people of. There is no doing yoga. There is living a life via the guidelines and the philosophies of yoga. And also, you don't have to like yoga. That is another one big thing. I know it sounds bizarre coming from a yoga teacher, but I've had those doctors go, "Have you tried yoga?" Or I've had those people go, "But maybe some yoga would help you." And as a very loud, very as a person with ADHD and the emotional outbursts and the intense interests that come with that, a lot of people will always say, "Well, have you tried yoga?" And you know what? It's okay if you don't like it. It's okay if you hate it.
Exactly.
There are many other things in the world that you might like.
Yeah, absolutely.
Or you might just need to find a better teacher. But if you tried many teachers and you don't like it, just let it go. You
Yeah,
don't need to. Yeah.
yeah, exactly. Don't beat yourself up over it. Yeah,
Yeah.
find something else. Could be
It's
simply
not,
walking.
yeah, exactly. It's not, it says nothing about you, your character, or who you are as a person if you don't like yoga.
Wonderful.
Conversely, it says nothing about your character, your moralness, or who you are as a person if you do like yoga.
Absolutely. Wonderful words of wisdom. Thank you, Aisha. Thank you so much for sharing your yoga journey with us. It's been an absolute pleasure. So this series is coming to a close, but we have 5 more. The last one will be on the 23rd of August, but next up on the 14th of June is one of my dear teacher training buddies, Sonali Sudarshi. She's a wonderful yoga teacher and a GP. So it'd be great to hear Sonali's journey on the 14th of June. Meanwhile, we say thank you once again to Aisha and wish you all the best for the future. Take care, everyone. Thanks for tuning in.
Thank you, everyone. Bye.